the body of successful real estate agent found near Moscow. And later, the surveillance footage surprises police with two teenagers as main suspects. And later on, more unexpected clues start to appear, making this case even more sinister. In this video, I will tell you about the murder case of Anastasiya Milosskaya. Hi friends, you're watching the Journalist channel, and before going further into this video, I want to say that the information here was mostly provided by police, but before the court ruling, every suspect is presumed innocent. If you will enjoy this video, please leave a like at the end and let's begin. This story began on March 27, 2023 in the city of Balashikha, which is located a few kilometers away from Moscow. It is a quiet town where the majority of the residents work in Moscow and return to their apartments in the evenings. In the courtyard near one of the houses, a janitor, while working, made a horrific discovery. He found a woman's body near the dumpster. The corpse was wrapped in plastic and a mattress cover. For the quiet residential area, this finding became a real shock. The nearby residents initially could not identify the victim. Identification was also complicated by the fact that the victim's face was swollen and red, as if she had been severely beaten. Investigators and forensic experts soon arrived at the scene, and they managed to establish the identity of the victim. They were also able to determine that this woman had rented an apartment in one of the nearby buildings. She turned out to be 39-year-old named Anastasiya Milosskaya. The detectives decided to gather more information about who the victim was and the details about her personal life. Anastasiya was a relatively successful real estate agent who had moved closer to Moscow a few years ago from another region of Russia. She lived with her 14-year-old daughter Lena. Milosskaya's husband had abandoned the family 10 years ago and had no involvement in their lives. Due to health issues, the teenager studied remotely, and she had very few friends. The detectives also examined the social media profiles of Anastasiya and her daughter, and were speaking with neighbors and family friends. The relationship between Anastasiya and her daughter proved to be complicated. Anastasiya was described by her friends as always positive and energetic woman. She strongly defended her personal space and did not accept any advice on how to raise her daughter. Allegedly, Anastasiya's daughter Lena had diabetes, and that was the reason why she was studying remotely from home. Therefore, Anastasiya dedicated a significant part of her time to raising her daughter. None of the Anastasiya's neighbors knew about any problems or enemies that could be linked to the crime. They were also unaware of her personal life. She only appeared at home with her daughter. It was also discovered that sometimes relations between Anastasiya and Lena were tense. They frequently had arguments, and some neighbors believed that Lena might have some psychological issues. Based on her behavior and tantrums, they were able to hear through the walls. Despite all this, Anastasiya loved her daughter dearly and almost never denied her of anything she wanted. But during the conversation with some of the Anastasiya's acquaintances, even more interesting information came to light. It turned out that shortly before her death, Lena asked Anastasiya to allow her 15-year-old friend to live with them in the apartment. Anastasiya considered him to be just a friend of her daughter, and investigators were able to gather her opinion on this situation from messages found on her phone. Anastasiya, while messaging one of her acquaintances, shared the fact that her daughter's friend is living with them. At that moment, she wasn't too concerned about it, judging by her messages, despite her acquaintance not fully understanding how a 14-year-old girl could bring her friend and possibly boyfriend to live with them. Anastasiya stood up for her daughter, considering this situation normal. Judging by social media, she was very soft towards Lena and rarely denied her anything. And she acted the same way this time, at least initially. Anastasiya even suspected that the boy who came to live with them could be Lena's boyfriend, but it didn't bother her. In her conversation with this acquaintance, Anastasiya also mentioned that she plans to change her career direction. This could potentially be a lead in the case. For example, if she wanted to start her own business and possibly invest money somewhere. but Anastasiya did not provide any more details about it. At the same time, she was sharing photos of her daughter on her social media, leaving comments expressing that she is the best in the world and perfect in every way. Meanwhile, Lena's social media page was at least weird for a 14-year-old. She would post strange photos and videos there. Of course, it is not possible to judge a teenager based solely on the photographs they post, but considering all the videos and messages gathered by police, the investigators found the relationship between the victim and her daughter to be at least strange. Soon afterward, the detectives made the first breakthrough. The police gained access to the surveillance footage from the camera installed above the door of the victim's apartment building. While reviewing the recording of the night when the crime was committed, they discovered two teenagers who stood near the entrance doors for some time. And then they started carrying something heavy wrapped in a blanket and plastic bags out of the building and took it towards the dumpster. There, they left the object without making any effort to conceal it and moved the garbage bin to hide it from view. It was evident that the body discovered in the morning was indeed being carried out by the teenagers captured in the footage. The police managed to track down the teenagers through surveillance cameras and mobile phone billing records, and they were able to identify them. Both the teenagers soon were apprehended. Naturally, the investigators were interested in how they managed to gain access to Anastasiya's apartment if they were involved in the crime. The teenagers weren't expecting that they would be so easily traced by police, and when they were arrested, they were so surprised that they didn't resist and began providing confessions. They admitted to their involvement, and what particularly shocked the investigators was their claim that they acted upon the request of Anastasiya's 14-year-old daughter and her boyfriend, who were living with them. According to the teenagers, they were offered 350,000 rubles, approximately equivalent to $4,000, to get rid of Anastasiya. Soon Lena and her so-called boyfriend were arrested and interrogated. They did not deny their guilt under the pressure of the evidence. As it turned out, shortly before the crime, Anastasiya's patience came to an end. She told her daughter that her boyfriend, whom she considered to be just a friend, had stayed for too long, and Anastasiya set a date for him to leave the apartment. Lena was not pleased with this. She knew that her mother had accumulated a considerable sum of money over the past years. Around 3.5 million rubles, which is approximately $40,000, were hidden in the apartment, and Lena knew about it. And she decided to get rid of her mother and live happily with her boyfriend and the money. After the arrest, many of Lena's friends became more willing to talk to the police and revealed that despite Anastasiya surrounding her daughter with love, never refusing her anything, constantly calling to find out where she was and how she was feeling, and providing her with a luxurious life by Russian standards, Lena constantly talked about how she dreamed of her mother's death, believing that she was hindering her from living the way she wanted. Lena even constantly indulged in speculations about how she would do it, and when the situation with her boyfriend reached the limit, she decided to take action. Journalists were able to obtain some of the messages from Lena's phone. She was constantly sending her friends some weird photos, boasted about buying cigarettes at 14 years old. And she was also sending photographs where her friends could see that she was cutting her arms and legs, but there in the messages she admitted that she was careful and didn't cut too deep. But still, she was very proud of the scars she had. Furthermore, the girl shared explicit details about her relationship with a young man and sent intimate photos to her friends. According to a former friend of the suspect, she had been dating for a long time, and many of the guys she was involved with were several years older. So when Lena decided to get rid of her mother, she asked her boyfriend to find someone who would help the couple to do it. And he found two of his acquaintances who were around 16-17 years old. The attack was planned on March 25th. On that day, shortly before Anastasiya returned home from work, Lena let her boyfriend and two of his friends in the apartment, and they waited for her mother to come home. When Anastasiya returned, Lena and her boyfriend went out onto the balcony, and the two assailants attacked Anastasiya, who had no suspicion, and began to strangle her. Now it is still unknown for how long she resisted the attackers, who were tall and strong for their age. Once everything was done, all four quickly left the apartment, leaving the body behind. They decided to remove it from the apartment only 2 days later. Before that, they left Anastasiya lying in her bed, and Lena was just living in the apartment with her mother's body inside. Soon, the court of Moscow region decided to arrest all four teenagers for investigative actions. The lawyers insisted on transferring Lena home due to her health condition. However, the court sided with the prosecution, and the schoolgirl will be sent to pretrial detention. After some time following her arrest, Lena retracted all her statements. She stated that she hated her mother but loved her at the same time. And according to her, her request to get rid of her parent was just a joke. She shifted all the blame onto her boyfriend and his two friends. Lena's grandmother helped her to hire qualified lawyers, as she also doesn't believe in her guilt. And she considers 3 other teenagers responsible for the crime. But in any case, by Russian law, because all of the suspects are underage, they cannot face more than 10 years in prison. And considering the fact that there is no direct evidence against Lena in connections to her mother's death, she maybe has some chance to defend herself in court. Court hearings on the case will take place this year, and I will provide information about further developments in this case on my channel. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.